Okay, so we're going to write some things at the top of page 87. Okay, let's write first thing in morning. Thank God for being alive. And thank God for the day. He, she, it, whatever. First thing in the morning, thank God for being alive. And thank God for the day. And then, how can I be of service to you and my fellows? Question mark. How can I be of service to you and my fellows? And I mean, I literally need to remind myself of this stuff every doggone day. It's crazy. I forget. I wake up in the morning and I've forgotten everything. First thing in the morning, thank God for being alive and thank Him for the day. How can I be of service to you and my fellows? And then let's write lead by example. Must be free of anger and fear, or try to be free of anger and fear. And then one last thing, we're going to write spiritual, mental, and emotional sobriety versus being dry. So try to be free of anger and fear, or must be free of anger and fear. Spiritual, mental, and emotional sobriety versus being dry. Man, when I stayed off the sauce and I forced periods of sobriety where I'm not working these doggone steps, you better get the hell out of my way, man. Get the hell out of my way. No wonder I scared people. Spiritual, mental, and emotional sobriety versus being dry. You know, there was this guy, he works at Tile Shop. That's the guy that was dying inside. He's still dying inside. And, I talked to him for a month every day about coming to Code Blue. Every single day for, 15, 20 minutes. And the very first day of Code Blue, he had forgot about it and offered to work that night. And I mean, this guy, I see him every day. He's been going through a living hell. And he just got popped for a DUI on Saturday, was in jail, his car's impounded. And, I told him again, I pulled him aside and I told him, I said, a couple other fellas that started Code Blue, are now have done their fourth and fifth step and are getting some serious sobriety. And I said, this is available to you, but you've got to take action, right? And I mean, I think the poor guy's given up. So we'll see if he, he wants just to wave a magic wand, and it doesn't work that way, man. It doesn't work. So now I don't know. He's got to breathe into something electronic 3 times a day, and doesn't have a car. I don't know. He spent $60 to get to work today in a cab. He doesn't have any money. So he's hopefully, I think he's going to lose his place. He's got 2 little kids, and I think, hopefully he'll be willing to do this. It might be a good thing. Who am I to know? I think it might be a good thing. I have no idea. What I've come to understand is I don't know what's good and what's bad anymore. I have no clue. So hopefully this will be a good thing for him. What used to be the hunch or the occasional inspiration gradually becomes a working part of the mind. Highlight those 2 sentences. What used to be the hunch or the occasional inspiration gradually becomes a working part of the mind. That means that our intuition, if we try to align our will with God's, is going to get better. Things are going to get better, man. Because when I first sobered up, I usually did the direct opposite of what my mind told me to do, and it was the right thing, right? But now what my mind tells me more and more is becoming the right thing. Being still inexperienced and having just made conscious contact with God, it is not probable that we are going to be inspired at all times. We might pay for this presumption in all sorts of absurd actions and ideas. Nevertheless, we highlight that our thinking will, as time passes, be more and more on the plane of inspiration. We come to rely upon it, right? So we're going to get better at this thing, and the prayer and meditation, talking to other people, practicing these principles, we get better. It's a set of exercises. We usually conclude the period of meditation with a prayer. Highlight that we be shown all through the day what our next step is to be. Highlight to the end of the paragraph. It's one big long thing. That we be shown all through the day what our next step is to be. That we be given whatever we need to take care of such problems. We ask especially for freedom from self-will and are careful to make no request for ourselves only. We may ask for ourselves, however, if others will be helped. We are careful never to pray for our own selfish ends, Many of us have wasted a lot of time doing that, and it doesn't work. You can easily see why. So next to never pray for our own selfish ends, we're going to write foxhole prayers. God, man, just get me out of this. I'll never do it again. God, just, you know what, man, just somehow get me a couple of extra $1,000. God, don't let me get caught stealing this deal, please. And then I'll shape up, right? Foxhole prayers. If circumstances warrant, we ask our wives or friends to join us in morning meditation. If we belong to a religious denomination which requires a definite morning devotion, we attend to that also. Right, so again, we cooperate with our religious people that are guiding us. If not members of religious bodies, we sometimes select and memorize a few set prayers which emphasize the principles we have been discussing. There are many helpful books also. Suggestions about these may be obtained from one's priest, minister, or rabbi. Underline the next sentence. Be quick to see where religious people are right. I always thought they were wrong my whole life, right? Look at those hypocrites over there. Make use of what they offer. So what I do, I try to get up early enough to do the third step, the 7-step prayer, and this sheet that we're going to take a look at in a little bit, I go over that sheet too in the morning before I leave. Let's highlight the next 3 lines. As we go through the day, we pause when agitated or doubtful and ask for the right thought or action. Okay, another prayer there. Bottom of the page, let's write something. Opposite of fear is faith. Opposite of fear is faith. And yeah, man, there's a lot of times when I get afraid, when I get really fearful. Remember that acronym, right? I forgot everything's all right. And that's, I'm not having faith in these principles. I'm not having faith in my higher power when I do that. So we ask for the right thought or action. And my little prayer is, God, I'm spiritually unfit. Please help me. We constantly remind ourselves, keep highlighting, we constantly remind ourselves we are no longer running the show. Humbly saying to ourselves many times each day, thy will be done. Right there. Thy will be done. That's an easy one. Because when I'm really getting full of anxiety and anger and fear, that's usually my will trying to be done, not thy will. We are then, highlight the next 3 lines as well, we are then in much less danger of excitement, fear, anger, worry, self-pity, or foolish decisions. We become much more efficient. That's amazing, right? Thy will be done, a simple little prayer. We're going to be in much less danger of excitement, fear, anger, worry, self-pity, or foolish decisions. We become much more efficient. Those are wonderful things to be. We do not tire so easily, for we are not burning up energy foolishly as we did when we were trying to arrange the life to suit ourselves. I'm running around like a madman trying to make everybody think I'm somebody I'm not, right? It works, it really does. We alcoholics are undisciplined, so we let God discipline us in the simple way we have just outlined. But this is not all. Underline, again, to the end, there is action and more action. Faith without works is dead. The next chapter is devoted entirely to step 12. Okay, so I'm going to read a little bit here on step 11. Let's see here. So, the whole idea of Code Blue, my sponsor said, hey, once you've made 2 amends, you're ready to sponsor other people. So you raise your hands at the meeting, right? And I'll never forget the first time I ever raised my hand. This knucklehead right here tapped me on the shoulder and scared the hell out of me. Incidentally, I would call my sponsor, what have you done to me? And Eric doesn't mind me sharing. A week later, he was thinking, how the hell can I get rid of this clown? So it's a two-way street, right? So that's our fear, right? But both of us overcame our fear, and we both recovered even further and became good friends. So it's amazing. So you do a couple amends, you're ready to do it. Before I worked the steps, I had nothing to offer the newcomer. Right? I'd had periods of sobriety and I had nothing to offer. I could pick them up and take them to meetings. All I could do is I could say, hey, go to more meetings. Join the sober softball team. Put the plug in the jug, right? Ask God in the morning for help. Go to more meetings, right? Don't drink. Call me before you drink. I had no plan of action for him, right? But I went through Code Blue and I said to my sponsor, what the hell am I going to do? He said, you do exactly what we did in Code Blue. You take him through the book. You highlight. You write. You work the steps just like you did, man. And again, a business which takes no regular inventory goes broke. And for us to go broke is to go back to drinking. And that's what these steps are on a daily basis, is an inventory. At my place of business, right? We sell tile. We got thousands. I don't know how much inventory, but it's a lot. We got thousands of SKUs. We do mini inventories all the time to make sure that we're keeping on track. And that's what we do in AA. We do inventories in the day and at night. And it's better if we deal with these thoughts and feelings before we open our mouth, right? And again, we practice these principles, and people cannot make us angry. So a couple questions. How is my relationship with God? Right? I mean, if I'm going through some craziness, it's probably not very good. I heard one guy that was speaking said, "Are you asleep at the wheel of your own life?" Well, sometimes I am, man. So how am I doing today? And we don't dwell on the past with our horrible war stories. So step 11, some signs of step 11, right? Signs that we're on the right path, right? We have a deep sense of gratitude. We have a feeling we belong in the world. We have growth of self-esteem, and I bet a lot of those are on that Spiritual Awakening page too. And we have a feeling that we have rights and that we're worthy, right? Some of us come in here, we think we're the greatest doggone things in the world. Other people think we're the worst, and in either case, that's not right. But you know what? If you have low self-esteem and you think you're not a very good person, all of a sudden you start to realize that, hey man, I'm okay. I'm doing esteemable things. I do have rights, and I am worthy. I do deserve a good life, doggone it. God does not want us to fail. Pythagoras, right? He's a Greek mathematician. What did Pythagoras say? He said, "Do not pray for yourself. You do not know what will help you." And that's absolutely true. I mean, I would have never prayed to go on a 2-day blackout, lose all of my pills, end up in the emergency room and get fired. I would have never prayed for that. But you know what? It turned my life around. So God wants us to stay sober, and God wants us to help others. God speaks through other people, but God also speaks an intuitive thought, because you know what? We usually know what the right doggone thing to do is. So that's our little soul, our little common sense, our little voice. So one of my sponsors said, you will be inventorying the rest of your life. And he said, you can either do it, you can do it a little bit in the morning. And whenever I do step 11 at night, and we'll look at that sheet in a minute, if I do it, it's only like 4 minutes at night. I go over the sheet and I keep myself spiritually intact, right? But if I don't inventory ever, stuff can build up, it can build up, it can build up. I become full of anger and fear. I start treating others badly. I become cut off from God. I'm almost ready to take a doggone drink, and then maybe I've got to go through and do another formal 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 to get back on track. Or we can do a little bit every night, a little bit in the morning, and a little bit in the day, and we keep in fit spiritual condition. We keep connected to God, keep connected to others, and we keep at peace with ourselves, man. A little bit about Bill. He wrote this book when he was 3 years sober. And I think he started it, rather. And I think that's absolutely amazing, because if somebody is only 3 years sober, I'm not going to borrow him my car. I mean, if somebody's only 3 years sober, don't bother getting me the cup of coffee, because you're going to screw up the cream and the sugar, right? So Bill writes this book, right? No medical training, no psychological training, no religious training, no sociological training, nothing. He's a night school lawyer selling stocks and bonds to suckers on Wall Street, right? There's no way on earth Bill should have been able to write one of the most profound and effective pieces of spiritual literature ever, with the spiritual instructions, by the way, that have saved the lives of millions of alcoholics, right? Now, 15 years later, after studying with the brightest minds in the world, psychologists, sociologists, religious, he wrote the 12 and 12. And a lot of people say God wrote the big book, Bill wrote the 12 by 12. Well, I think maybe it's a little bit of both. But I think mainly he wrote the 12 and 12 to force I was taught to get the traditions to keep us from falling apart, and he put the essays on how to better work the steps, right? By the way, though, if you want to actually follow instructions on working the steps, they're only in the big book. They are not in the 12 and 12, right? And, Bill, when he wrote the 12 and 12, didn't know much about prayer or meditation or spirituality, and thank God he didn't. Because if he had, he might have written it in such language that I would not have been able to understand it, right? Because I was completely bankrupt, and I didn't know how to pray, I didn't know how to meditate or do anything. So thank God he wrote it so somebody like me could understand it. And the big book tells us to do the actions first. We go to meetings, we get a sponsor, we do the actions in the big book. So actions first, and our mind will follow. All other therapies in the world are going to say change your thinking first, and then your actions will change. We're backwards people. We change our actions first. I just think that's kind of funny. The big book, I think, is a living and breathing document. Because, anybody who's the privilege of taking people through the book, and taking people through the book is not a chore, it's not a burden, it's not an onus, it's a privilege to take somebody through it and watch them be restored to health and to life, and then to go and help still others, right? And I see this all the time. It's freaking amazing. But when I go through the book and I reread the same thing for the 130th time, the meaning is different. It's like, who got in there and changed that around? That did not mean that last time, right? So what happens is every time we go through it, we're in a different place, and it keeps changing, and it keeps allowing us to grow and to change as well while we watch the new guy change, right? It's freaking amazing. One phrase that got changed was "we're not cured," right? It's contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. I used to read that as what I do is based on my spiritual condition, not the maintenance of my. The maintenance of my spiritual condition means, did I say my prayers this morning? Did I meditate? Did I call my sponsor? Did I go to a meeting? Did I try to help a new guy? Did I practice these principles? Did I treat people with dignity and respect? It's the maintenance, right? It's not how I feel. It is not how I feel. So it is not a daily reprieve based on what our spiritual condition is, because sometimes I'm in bad shape, but it's based on what I do. What did I do today, right? The step 10 and 11 actions, right? Every day is a day when we must, carry His will into all of our activities, right? And again, follow directions, not suggestions. Spirituality, for me, again, it's following a set of rules, right? And maybe I've talked about this before, but I was a junior in college, and I was drinking my case of beer and getting stoned before we went out to the bars to drink all night, right? Save money that way. On comes Magnum PI. And Magnum PI is on, and there's a samurai guy who's in Hawaii. And somebody had stolen an artifact from his employer. It was an antique plate. And the samurai told Magnum, he said, if I don't recover this plate, I have to commit hara-kiri. And Magnum looks at the guy and he said, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. I am not going to let you kill yourself because you probably ain't going to get that gol darn plate back. I'm not going to let you do it. And the samurai looked at Magnum and he said, Magnum son, I live my life by a code. And if I do not live my life by a code, my life has no meaning. Right? And you know what, man? That is true for me today. They say the two most important days of your life, the day you're born, the day you die, that's not it. The two most important days of your life are the day you're born and the day you figure out what your purpose is or what your code that you're going to live by. And I had no code, man, until I came into these rooms. I had none. I'm happy that I was kept alive, man. So let's look at this little sheet real quick. Step 11, prayers and meditations. Okay, so let's go off to the left, right? Off to the left, these are the evening prayers and meditations. So this is what I do. I'm lucky if I do it twice a week, right? But I get on my knees. This is on my nightstand. Were you resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid? Usually I was something, right? Do you owe an apology? Have you kept something to yourself which should be discussed with another person at once? Hello, sponsor. Were you kind and loving toward all? That's a rare day if that ever happens. What could you have done better? Well, probably a lot of things. Were you thinking of yourself most of the time, or were you thinking of what you could do for others, of what you could pack into the stream of life? Be careful not to drift into worry, remorse, or morbid reflection, for that would diminish your usefulness to others, right? Don't beat yourself up. If you made a mistake, fix it. Fess up to it. Fess up to it. I did it. It was wrong. I was wrong. And what can I do to make it right? God, please forgive me and tell me what corrective measures should be taken. When I do a step 11 at night, it's only 5 minutes, right? Unless something really crazy happened and I need to talk to my sponsor about it, right? Then maybe longer. So then in the middle, we got the morning prayers. These I do religiously. I get on my knees and I read these. On awakening, pray. God, I ask you to direct my thinking. I especially ask that my thinking be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motives. Think about the 24 hours ahead. Consider your plans for the day. I do that. I think of what's going to happen in my day, right? One guy that I heard said it's kind of like, it's not Eastern meditation. It's kind of like a general meditating the battle. Oh, we're going to move our forces there. This is going to happen. This is going to. So we think about it a little bit. We meditate, and then we stop and we listen, right? If you are faced with indecision, pray. I ask you for inspiration and intuitive thought or decision, and then we go about our business. After considering your plans for the day, pray. God, I pray I be shown all through the day what my next step is to be. I pray I be given whatever I need to take care of such problems. I ask especially for freedom from self-will. I ask that I be given strength only if others will be helped. Also say the following prayers. My Creator, I ask that you show me the way of patience, tolerance, kindness, and love. And I have to do that every day because I forget, man. I forget. And if I don't do this, it's like, well, I better take care of John today. John's number one on the list of taking people that need taken care of. God, what can I do today for the man who is still sick? These resentments are so important. I work with some people that they pretty much automatically do stuff every day to piss me off, right? And they don't even know they're doing it, right? So I insert their names. There's like every single day. God, I ask that everything I want for myself be given to Noel, Tom, Anna, Jerry, right? I ask for Noel, Tom, Anna, Jerry's health, prosperity, and happiness, right? So when I do this, these guys can do just about anything to me during the day. Oh, I tried to steal that $5,000 order from me, did ya? Guy, no, then I don't have to get angry, right? Also select and memorize set prayers. I do the 7th and the 3rd. So then throughout the day, we got the right-hand column. Constantly remind yourself, I am no longer running the show. Say to yourself many times each day, thy will be done. When agitated or doubtful, God, please give me the right thought or action. Because a lot of times I don't know what to do. If I want to lash out to protect myself, or I'm afraid, self-centered fear, I'm going to probably do the wrong thing. Thoughts which must go with you constantly. How can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. Another little, when people are going to harm us. There's no question. People are going to offend us. It's going to happen all the time. If a person offends you, this is a sick man. How can I be helpful to him? God save me from being angry. Thy will be done. I know that many people are spiritually ill, and they don't have to be practicing alcoholics to be that way, or recovered alcoholics. People are spiritually sick, and they are going to offend. And that helps me when I realize that something's going on. Let's see, what else do I got here? I do want to read this little letter from Bill Wilson. And I don't know what happened. I've tried to. You don't have that. There was a group in Chicago. I know this much. I don't know. Bill was doing something, and this Chicago group was tremendously offended by Bill Wilson's actions. I don't know if he wasn't treating his wife right, or there's stories about, maybe infidelity. I don't know exactly what it was, but they wrote Bill Wilson a letter, and they took his inventory, and they were reading Bill Wilson the Riot Act, and here's what he sent back to them. That you seem disillusioned with me personally may be a new and painful experience for you, but many members have had that experience with me. I love that. right? That you are disillusioned, and it might be new to you, but everybody else it's happened to. Most of their pain has been caused not only by my several shortcomings, but by their own insistence on placing me, a drunk, trying to get along with other folks, upon a completely illusory pedestal, a station which no fallible person could possibly occupy. I'm sure that you will understand that I have never held myself out to anybody as either a saint or a Superman. I have repeatedly and truthfully said that AA is full of people who have made more spiritual progress than I ever or can make. That in some areas of living I have made some decided gains, but in others I seem to have stood still. And in still other ways I may have gone backwards. I am sorry that you are disillusioned with me, but I am happy that even I have found a life here. Amazing, man. I love that. That's, you can type in Bill Wilson illusory pedestal and it'll come up. That's just a fantastic letter. That we cannot put people in AA on pedestal. We can't put anybody on a pedestal, right? I mean, and certainly not ourselves. This little sheet you guys can look at. Daily inventory. It's just something to help you, you know. Was I dishonest, inconsiderate, resentful, angry, anything else negative? You can make some copies, and this is just an easy way if you want to inventory, or just get out your notebook and you can write a couple paragraphs in your notebook, right? Kind of like a little diary. Then I think I got 9 questions on how to help your work, step 10, but if you do this at night, it's actually 9 questions on how to help with step 11, right? Unless you memorize all these. So, how may I have harmed myself or someone today? Which of my character defects caused me to do this? How was I resentful, selfish, dishonest, or fearful? Da, da, da. So you can read these are just little things that we can, guides to inventory. If we don't know what questions to ask ourselves, and this is really step 11, I know it says 10, but these are just little things that we can fill out. Because again, man, we've got to take inventory on a daily basis, right? I'm a hothead, man. I am a hothead, and I need these instructions, man. I mean, I'm like Bill. Don't you ever put me on a pedestal. I screw up all the time. I am constantly getting pulled back into the material world. I'm a commissioned salesman, for God's sakes. So I get pulled in the material, and I get pulled away from God and spirituality all the time. When that happens, looks, money, status, recognition, all these other things become important to me rather than the program principles, right? And when this happens, I become dishonest, prideful, greedy. I stop doing the things my book tells me to do. I start to think of myself only. And by God, when I do that, all my old problems come back. They all come back. The ones I got rid of by going through the steps. And then I start to think about taking a drink, a toke, maybe a pill, right? But I get to say, John, you knucklehead, you are not following the instructions in the book, right? The good news is we can get right back on track. So I don't care if you have a really bad week and oh my God, and you're thinking about suicide or drink or whatever. We start this stuff and we get right back on track, right? Right back on track. I mean, the important thing is that we do not take that drink. We don't take that doggone drink. If I go too far and become right next to that precipice, then I do a formal 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 again, right? Or we can do a couple of minutes in the morning, a couple of minutes during the day, and a couple of minutes at night, and we are fine, man. Somewhere it says pain is the touchstone of all spiritual progress. Whenever I'm experiencing pain, I know I got to do something, man. You know, some people say step 11 is living in the moment, and it is, right? I'm not that far advanced. I try to stay in the present. Most days I'm lucky if I can keep one foot in the world of the spirit, right? But I will say I've woken up spiritually, and people who have woken up spiritually, at least people like me, we do not exist on some high, lofty, metaphysical step 11 plane. People like me who are now aware of spiritual things, though I'm going to tell you, are no longer thirsty. And we're treating people much better, and we're treating ourselves better. And most days, that is good enough for me. God does not want us to fail. Again, He simply does not, right? So, again, inventory on a daily basis. Do not let it build up. One more thing we can look at. Actually, 3 things real quick. I don't know if you guys still have this daily inventory sheet, but this is just something we can kind of check. Again, these are just little spot check things that we can do. I don't have time to write anything tonight, okay? Was I selfish and self-seeking, or did I have some interest in others? Dishonest or honest? Frightened or courageous? Inconsiderate, considerate? Prideful or humility? Greedy or was I giving? Was I lustful or thinking of what I can do for others? Was I angry or calm? Envious or grateful? Was I slothful or did I take action? Impatient or patient? Intolerant or tolerant? Did I have resentment or did I practice forgiveness? Hateful or love? Harmful acts or good deeds? Full of self-pity or full of forgetfulness? When we help other people, we forget ourselves, man. Full of self-justification or humility? Self-importance or modesty? Self-condemnation or self-forgiveness? So these are just little things and you're never going to be all on one side or the other, but hopefully as time passes and we practice these principles, we're going to end up more and more on the side of personality characteristics of God's will. I just want to say I had, for about a week, man, I went off the deep end. It all started when one of my customers I've had for years, a builder, one of the customers ended up at one of our other stores and I lost a huge deal. Right? Lost a huge deal. Then I had another one that I was working on, and I lost that deal to another store, so I'm losing them to other people. And then I went on a 5-day slump of not selling anything, and all of a sudden, what's going on in my head? I forgot everything's okay. The fear, the resentment started building up, and I started thinking about myself. Oh my God, what am I going to do? This is horrible. Oh my God, I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to do this. And all of a sudden, I just happened to I happened to have one of my step 10 little things, and I listened to it, and I said, oh my God, I am not doing any of this stuff. So I immediately started praying. Thank God I got to hear somebody's 5th step on Friday. I'm working with a brand new guy on Saturday, and I went into work with the attitude that I don't care. If I get sales, I'm going to help other people. I'm going to help my boss, and I'm going to help my fellow salespeople, and I'm going to do the best job I can with everybody right in front of me. And I got to tell you, as soon as I had that idea, boy, did I bust the hell out of my slump like you wouldn't believe, right? Because I was focused on helping other people. I mean, it was amazingly. We all lose it now and again, but we can get right back on track. That's why we need a sponsor. That's why we got to keep in contact with our sponsor, because sometimes we can't see it. And if we're unlucky, we're going to go off the deep end and maybe do something stupid and possibly even drink. But if we keep in touch and we keep in touch with meetings and our sponsor and we practice these principles, we're probably going to be okay. So again, I'm just going to read real quick. Signs of a spiritual awakening: a tendency to think and act spontaneously rather than on fears based upon the past. Right? That was me. I was acting on fears. An unmistakable ability to savor each moment. A loss of interest in judging other people, man. That's wonderful not to have to judge everybody. A loss of interest in judging self. A loss of interest in interrupting the actions or words of others. Whenever I used to have conversations with people, they couldn't get one word out. I'd stop them all the time. Now I listen. Most of the time. A loss of interest in conflict. People used to seek me out. If they were having a bad day and they wanted to fight, they'd come find John Henry, and then I'd give them a fight every single time. Now when they come to me for a fight, and I go, oh, that's nice, you might be right, and I don't respond. They're like, doggone it, he's not fighting. A loss of ability to worry. That's a serious symptom. Frequent overwhelming episodes of appreciation. Contented feelings of connectedness with others and nature, frequent attacks of smiling. Sometimes we smile for no reason, right? I used to have a frown all the time. An increased tendency to let things happen rather than to make them happen. An increased susceptibility to the love extended by others, as well as uncontrollable urge to extend it yourself. So pretty cool. We get to experience some of those things.
What's that last thing you read?
An increased susceptibility to the love.
No, what is it like if I want to find that list?
Oh, I got it right here.
Oh.
Got them all. I got all these things right here. Yep, right. So yeah, you can come and get these sheets. So these are instructions that are just. They saved my life. And again, I need to practice these every day to stay sane and happy. That's why he put them in there. So I guess we will end with the 7-step prayer. 7-step prayer. Which is on page, what is that on? 63, I think.
76.
76, yep. My Creator, I am now ready that you should have all of me, good and bad. I now pray that you remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do thy bidding. Amen. All right, and you know what? I think I do if somebody